Okay. In this video, we're going to look at 7 through 10, and then we may look at the graphs on the next page, where we introduce a brand new operation. I say brand new to the lesson, but you've hopefully seen this in Algebra 1 and 2. The composition of two functions. So just like earlier, we have our f of x and our g of x. And in example 7, we were asked to find this. This is f of g of x, is how we read this. F of g of x. So how do we find f of g of x? This is really asking us to take the g function and plug it into the f function. That's kind of what's being done here. So let's write this out more clearly. F of g of x. So I just rewrote it, right? F of g of x. What is this? This is f of, well, notice g of x is just 3x minus 2. So this is f of 3x minus 2. And I'm going slowly here. A lot of you remember that this is asking you to take the g function and plug it into the f function. But more clearly now, f of g of x is f of 3x minus 2, because that is what g of x is, 3x minus 2. So how do you find f of 3x minus 2? Well, to find f of anything, you just plug that thing in for x, right? So to find f of 3x minus 2, we're going to take 3x minus 2 and plug it in for x. So what's that going to look like? Well, it's going to be something, squared plus 1, right? That's the f function, x squared plus 1, but I'm plugging in that 3x minus 2 here. Okay? So literally, to find f of g of x, we're taking g of x, plugging it into f of x, taking the inside function g of x and plugging it into the outside function f of x. And when I take this 3x minus 2 and plug it into f of x, I will get here. And then the rest is up to me to simplify this and get a final answer. So hopefully you're okay with how we get to this stage, 3x minus 2 squared plus 1. So let's go. So we want to be super careful here. 3x minus 2 squared. If we go really fast, we might think that this is like 9x squared plus 4 or something. But remember, to square something is to multiply it by itself. So 3x minus 2 squared is 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. 3x minus 2 squared is multiplied by itself. And then, of course, we're not going to forget the plus 1. Okay, let's FOIL out that 3x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. So first, outer 3x minus 2 is minus 6x. Inner, so another minus 6x. Last, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. And then again, we're not going to forget the positive 1. Simplify this as a final answer. 9x squared minus 12x plus 5. This would be f of g of x. We took g of x, plugged it into f of x, and we got this brand new function, f of g of x, which was 9x squared minus 12x plus 5. Excellent. Let's look at example number 8. So in example number 8, we are introduced to the symbol for function composition. The symbol for function composition. Like, this is the symbol for addition, this is the symbol for multiplication, subtraction. This open circle is the symbol for composition. So we want to be super careful. That open circle there is not multiplication, which is a lot of times written as a closed circle. Okay? That open circle is a composition of two functions. Whoops. Okay? So, this is asking us to find g of f of x. Okay? This means this. They are the same thing. So when you see g open circle f, that is not g of x times f of x. That is the composition of f and g. So we would say g of f of x, or taking the inside function f of x and plugging it into the outside function g of x. So let's find what that's going to equal. G of f of x. So that's g of f of x, but remember f of x was x squared plus 1. Okay. So how do you find g of x squared plus 1? Well, to find g of anything, you take what's inside the parentheses and plug it into the g function. So that's going to be 3 times something minus 2 is how the function works. So 3 times something minus 2, where that something is whatever's in the parentheses. Remember, I'm taking this x squared plus 1, plugging it into x here to get this. 3 times x squared plus 1 minus 2. Okay. And then the rest is just a matter of simplifying. The hardest part of the problem is just knowing what it's asking. It's asking you to take the inside function, f of x, plug it into g. That's exactly what we did. We took x squared plus 1 and plugged it into g. Cool. So what do we get? Well, if we distribute, we're going to get 3x squared plus 3, not forgetting the minus 2. And then as a final answer, 3x squared. 3 minus 2 is minus 1. No, it's not. It's plus 1. Silly. 3x squared plus 1. Awesome. Okay. What about problem number 9? F circle g of 1. Remember, that symbol is function composition, so this is asking you to find f of g of 1. F of g of 1. So please be familiar. This f circle g of 1 is asking for this. That's what that means. Okay. So first thing, I always work inside out here. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out what on earth g of 1 is. So just ignore that f for a second. Let's just see if we can't find g of 1 on the inside. Well, g of 1 is what you get when you plug in a 1. So what's 3 times 1 minus 2? 3 times 1 minus 2 is 1. Because 3 times 1 is 3, minus 2 is 1. So g of 1 is 1. Okay? And now, kind of refocus. Now we're down to this. So we just found g of 1. And now our final goal is to find f of 1, which is what I get when I plug in a 1 there. That's 1 squared plus 1, or 2. Okay? So to find f of g of 1, find the inside answer first, write it down, and then find f of that answer, which was 2. Last one, what's g of f of 10? G of f of 10. Well, we'll start off by first finding the inside. Find the inside answer, plug it into the outside function. So working inside out here. So let's first find f of 10, right? Because I'll just rewrite the question. We're trying to find g of f of 10. So we're first going to find f of 10. We'll put that here, and then we'll worry about finding g of that number. So it's kind of like a double evaluation problem. So what's f of 10? Well, f of 10 is 10 squared plus 1. 10 squared plus 1, that's 101. So f of 10 is 101. So we found the inside answer first, we got 101, and now we're going to shift our focus and see if we can't find g of that answer. What's g of 101? Well, that's going to be 3 times 101 minus 2, which is going to be 303 minus 2, or 301. As a final answer, 301. Awesome. Okay, let's look now here. Let's let, I can't remember which was what. Let's let this good lord, this red function be g of x, and let's let this blue function be f of x. It's not labeled, so I'm just telling you now that the red function is g of x, the blue function is f of x. On a test or a quiz, it would be labeled. Okay, so let's find, real quick, the answers to 11 through 15, very quickly. So 11, what's f of g of negative 2? F of g of negative 2. Remember, just like earlier, we're going to work inside out. So if this is composition, that's f of, let's find what g of negative 2 is. G of negative 2. Well, if we had a function, we could just plug in a negative 2 in for x, but all we have is a picture. So we got to remember, how do you find g of negative 2? This thing here. How do you find g of negative 2? Well, with a graph, this is saying when x is negative 2, y is what? So when x is negative 2, it looks like y is 2. So g of negative 2 is 2. When x is negative 2, y is 2. Okay, on the g function. All right. So now let's shift our focus and try to find f of 2. We found g of negative 2, plugged it in and got 2, but what's f of that? What's f of 2? Well, same process. When x is 2, y is negative 1. Final answer here, negative 1. So again, those composition functions start on the inside, get an answer, and then find the outside function evaluated at that answer. So we found g of negative 2, got 2, and then we found f of 2 and got negative 1. So kind of a double problem there. Okay. Let's look at 12. So 12 is going to ask us to find f of 0 minus g of 0. So let's find f of 0 first. When x is 0, so that's right here, y is 1 on the f function. What about g of 0? So when x is 0, y is negative 2 on the g function. So hopefully you see why I chose to put that in parentheses, because 1 minus negative 2, 1 minus negative 2 is a lot like 1 plus 2, which is, of course, 3. F of 0 minus g of 0 is 3. Okay, moving right along. What is f divided by g of negative 2? Well, that looks complicated unless we remember from way earlier that these are the same thing. So f divided by g of something is f of that thing divided by g of that thing. So f divided by g of negative 2 is f of negative 2 divided by g of negative 2. So what's f of negative 2? Well, when x is negative 2, use the right color. So what's f of negative 2? When x is negative 2, y is negative 1 over what's g of negative 2? G of negative 2, when x is negative 2, y is 2. So we get negative 1 over 2. Negative 1/2 is f divided by g of negative 2. Cool. What about 14? F divided by g of, or f divided by, excuse me, g of f of negative 1. G of f of negative 1. So that's circle G, open circle, not multiplication, composition. G of f of negative 1. So we've been working with composition for a few examples now, so we're going to go inside out. So we'll start by first finding f of negative 1, and then once we have that answer, we'll find g of that answer. So what's f of negative 1? Well, when x is negative 1, y is 0. And then, now, what's g of 0 to get a final answer? Well, when x is 0, y is... Oop, I've made a mistake. Make sure you're referring to the right function. G of 0, excuse me. So when x is 0, y is negative 2. Negative 2 is a final answer. Starting on the inside out, we found f of negative 1, which was 0, and then we found g of 0, which was negative 2. Excellent. Almost done. Last example for the video. What's f of negative 3? So let's look there. f of negative 3. So let's go slow here. f of negative 3. So just like earlier, we'll start on the inside. So let's first find f of negative 3. We'll get an answer. And then we will find f of that answer. So what's f of negative 3? Well, when x is negative 3, y is negative 2. Okay, so now what's f of negative 2 to get a final answer? F of negative 2, when x is negative 2, y is negative 1.